Hello, this is Robert Rickover. I'm an Alexander Technique teacher in Omaha, Nebraska. My guest is Imogen Ragone, an Alexander Technique teacher in Wilmington, Delaware. We both teach primarily online. And this will be the initial podcast in a series of taking a specific, usually very short Alexander Technique quote and breaking it down a little bit and seeing what are some of its implications. I'll turn it over to you, Imogen.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you. So why don't you reveal to us, Robert, what the first quote we're going to be looking at is?
So yeah, I mean, these quotes will all mostly be from FM Alexander himself and first generation teachers, although I certainly wouldn't rule out quotes from today's teachers if it meets the high standards that we're talking about here. The first quote is from a lady named Margaret Goldie, who many Alexander teachers have probably heard a little bit about, but don't know a lot about. She trained with Alexander well before the first training course. So she was trained kind of on an apprenticeship model, I guess you could say, with Alexander. And she was someone who was very close to him. And she continued teaching for many years in London after he died. I meant to look it up. Alexander died in 1955, and she was teaching, I'm sure, into the 80s, and I think into the 90s even. I'm not sure, but for many, many years. And she was not part of the club. She did not have a training course, and she was quite critical of some of the training courses that were out there. And I think her basic beef with the other teachers is they weren't teaching inhibition the way she thought they should. I think that's a fair assessment. And the quote itself, here it is. If I ask you not to do something, there's no way that you can do it right. Now, I've seen a number of reactions to that quote, and one of them is, oh my God, it's just another old Alexander teacher dissing her students and judging, and we don't need that. It's like a cranky old lady saying something that's saying, well, you can never do it right. What kind of loser are you, right? But I believe that totally misses the point of the quote. Very much so.
It is a bit of a mind twister.
It is.
If I ask you not to do something, there's no way you can do it right. What I hear is that that's good because you don't want people trying to do something right, because that's, am I on the same sort of lines?
So I gotta say this.
I'm at the first level of understanding.
So I want to say that this quote has been circulating in my brain for the last year or so. And I keep coming back to it, and I keep thinking, well, there's a whole nother nuance here. But your first take on it, you can't do it right, implies also you can't really do it wrong. No judgment. You don't have to worry about being right. Yeah.
Right. That's
that was my very first take on it. And I thought, that's a very liberating quote. You don't have to worry about being right. But I think, I'm not sure that is exactly she might have had that message in mind. I think on further reflection, she was trying to make the point, if I ask you not to do something, then if you do something even a little bit, you're not doing it right. No doing.
Right.
Now, it may not have been in her mind, but she was very big on non-doing. I mean, that was like a huge theme on her part. But so it's one way of saying, really if you want to self-direct in a useful way, it's got to be just a thought. And if you start sticking some doing in there, and we've talked about this several times, that's gonna take away most, maybe, or a good part of the power of that direction. It may take it all away. That she's just saying no doing, period. So that's maybe, I would put that as like the second level of my understanding.
But
how there's more. There's more. So, thinking about it some more, the quote itself raises a question, which is, why would an Alexander teacher say to a student, why would an Alexander teacher ever ask a student not to do something? And what is it that they might ask the student not to do? Any thoughts on that? You're an Alexander teacher.
I wouldn't. To me, it relates to what you were saying before. I'd ask them not to do the direction, the thinking. Just see if they can leave it alone, and it simply be a thought. Of course, it's not that. Is that what?
Well,
you're getting at
something
thinking
more. A little differently. I have a sort of a different train of thought, because I'm thinking, well, in my teaching, I don't know that I've ever said to a student, don't do that. I don't think I've ever said
no,
that.
And yet you've been a great proponent of what you call negative directions,
inhibitory directions,
which is I'm not doing, and does this in the same realm? I don't know.
Well, so I think there's like two different things. There's what a teacher might say to a student, and what a student might think to him or herself. Because I don't remember ever hearing a teacher say to me, don't do that. And I don't know, can you think of any time you said to a student, don't do what you're doing?
Possible, I suppose. I can't think of an instance.
You can't, yeah, it just isn't. I don't think that's part of most Alexander teaching by anybody, really. And I think that she's saying, well, if I tell you not to do something, I think she's saying, let's just go outside of the realm of Alexander teaching. Like, this is not something, I would never tell you not to do something, but if I did tell you not to do something, there's no way you could do it well or right. And there's some I know it's mind-boggling. There are some implications of that, but I think to me, the next step is, but you might want to be saying something to yourself or thinking something to yourself. And if it's a non-doing direction, like I'm not tensing my neck, or I'm not compressing my body, or even a freedom direction, I'm free, or even some of those classical directions, I'm letting my neck be free, whatever, which I think have some drawbacks, but even those, if you try to actually implement those directions, it's not gonna work for the kind of, we've talked about, front part of the brain delivers the message, but the rest of the body implements it. And the part that comes up with the message is pretty incapable of doing the kind of micromanaging that would be required to actually implement those directions. So it could be that that's what she's getting at. That's a possibility. And I had
Is there another level, or are we at the pinnacle of your understanding so far?
Well, I actually don't know what
you don't know what level is.
I don't know what level it is, because every time I think about this for a while, a new version kind of comes into my mind about what she was actually getting at, or what she's saying here. But they're all things that are actually pretty important if you believe that Alexander technique inhibition is a good thing, which I certainly do, and I think most teachers do, right? Even if they don't exactly know how to do it. But yeah, so
I'm just thinking about this quote. You're making my brain hurt.
I know it. Believe me, I've had the same experience. I mean, some of these I've mulled around, especially when I'm going to sleep at night. I'll think about them, and all of these possibilities kind of come into my mind, and that is exactly what we were talking about in our previous conversation. That these quotes from master teachers and people who really been around the technique for a long time and thought deeply about it contain a lot of stuff that's not kind of readily apparent with the first read. That's what. So, you have any more thoughts on this particular quote?
I think I'm going more literal as I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
Because if I asked you not to cross your legs, you can uncross your legs.
Yep.
And it seems like you maybe have done it right.
Well, let's take, there's that. And then let's take the way Patrick MacDonald taught, and students of his, I believe, still teach quite a bit. So he was a first generation teacher, same generation as Margaret Goldie, really. And he would often say that he'd have you standing in front of a chair, for example. And he said, well, I'm gonna put you in the chair. I'm gonna guide you into the chair, or something like that. And your job is to say no, right? No. Now,
you could say no and literally be stiff as a board and stop him being able to move you.
And he wanted to get across the idea that you're saying no to doing anything about it. He's just going to do this thing, and you're not stopping him, you're not helping him, you're just letting him guide you into the chair, which gives your whole body as an experience that it probably couldn't easily get any other way at that point in your learning. So there's an example where he wants you just to think, I'm not going to sit, but he doesn't want you to do
I'm not going to help
anything beyond the thought. And he was pretty quick to notice when you went beyond he was very skilled at that process. And he would stop you in your tracks if he felt that you were actually trying to do something about that thought. So that would be, I think, an example of I think probably Margaret Goldie. I don't know what her relationship with MacDonald was, but she probably would have seen, oh, that's a clever little technique he's using to get across this idea of non-doing. I don't think it's the way she taught particularly, from what I know, but so there's that. And I have no doubt that listeners to this, viewers of this, could come up with some completely different ideas,
interpretations. So I think just from our conversation, I think the idea of non-doing is wrapped up in this quote.
Very much wrapped up
Yeah.
in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Is that all you've got?
that's all I got for now. But if
Very
anyone
interesting.
has some ideas, email us, let us know, because this could be a quote that might have several conversations. Who knows? This quote is a particularly good example, I think, of the power of these short, pithy Alexander technique quotes that we were talking about in the previous conversation. And we're going to do more. We got lots of them from FM, from Walter, from McDonald, from Marge Barstow, Marge Barlow. We have them. We got them all. So, and I'll put a link to a place where you can find hundreds of them, and you can download them and use them any way you want.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this. My guest has been Imogen Ragone, Alexander technique teacher in Wilmington, Delaware, home of our president.
Indeed.
Indeed. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.